The Syrian Army, officially the Syrian Arab Army, is the land force branch of the Syrian Armed Forces. It is the dominant military service of the four uniformed services, controlling the most senior posts in the armed forces, and has the greatest manpower, approximately 80% of the combined services. The Syrian Army originated in local military forces formed by the French after World War I, after France obtained a mandate over the region. It officially came into being in 1945, before Syria obtained full independence the following year. Since 1946, it has played a major role in Syria's governance, mounting 5 military coups and one with Jordan. An armored division was also deployed to Saudi Arabia in 1990–91 during the Persian Gulf War, but saw little action. From 1976 to 2005 it was the major pillar of the Syrian occupation of Lebanon. Internally, it played a major part in suppressing the 1979–82 Islamist uprising in Syria, and since early 2011 has been heavily engaged in fighting the Syrian Civil War, the most violent and prolonged war the Syrian Army has taken part in since its establishment in the 1940s. History: in 1919, the French formed the Troupes par copyright Sils du Levant as part of the Army of the Levant in the French Mandate for Syria and the Lebanon. The former with 8,000 men later grew into both the Syrian and Lebanese armies. This force was used primarily as auxiliaries in support of French troops, and senior officer posts were held by Frenchmen, although Syrians were allowed to hold commissions below the rank of major. As Syria gained independence in 1946, its leaders envisioned a division-sized army. The 1st Brigade was ready by the time of the Syrian War against Israel on May 15, 1948. It consisted of 2 infantry battalions and 1 armored battalion. The 2nd Brigade was organized during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and also included 2 infantry battalions and 1 armored battalion. At the time of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the army was small, poorly armed, and poorly trained. Paris had relied primarily on French regulars to keep the peace in Syria and had neglected indigenous forces. Consequently, training was lackadaisical, discipline lax, and staff work almost unheard of. There were about 12,000 men in the Syrian army. These troops were mostly grouped into 3 infantry brigades and an armored force of about battalion size, writes Polak. Between 1948 and 1967, a series of military coups destroyed the stability of the government and any remaining professionalism within the army. In March 1949, the Chief of Staff, General Hosni al-Zaim, installed himself as president. 2 more military dictators followed by December 1949. General Adab Shishakli then held power until deposed in the 1954 Syrian coup d'état. Further coups followed, each attended by a purge of the officer corps to remove supporters of the losers from the force. Discipline in the army broke down across the board as units and their commanders pledged their allegiance to different groups and parties. Indeed, by the late 1950s, the situation had become so bad that Syrian officers regularly disobeyed the orders of superiors who belonged to different ethnic or political groups, writes Polak. The 1963 Syrian coup d'état had as one of its key objectives the seizure of the Al-Qissa military camp, home to the 70th Armored Brigade. There was another 1966 Syrian coup d'état. However, in 1967 the army did appear to have some strength. It had around 70,000 personnel, roughly 550 tanks and assault guns, 500 APCs, and nearly 300 artillery pieces. The army had 16 brigades, 12 infantry, 2 armored, and 2 mechanized. The Syrian government deployed 12 of the 16 brigades to the Golan, including both armored brigades and 1 mechanized brigade. 3 brigade groups, each comprising 4 brigades, were deployed, the 12th in the north, holding the sector from the Bnet Yanosov Bridge to the slopes of Mount Hermon, the 35th in the south from the Bnet Yanosov Bridge to the Yarmouk River border with Jordan, and the 42nd in reserve, earmarked for a theater-level counterattack role. During the Six-Day War Israeli assault of the Golan Heights, the Syrian army failed to counterattack the Israelis as the Israelis breached the Syrian positions. While Syrian units fought hard whenever the Israelis entered their fields of fire, no attempts appear to have been made to exploit Israeli disorientation and confusion during the initial assault. Judging from reports of 1967 to 1970, including the reporting of the 5th Infantry Division in 1970, the Army appears to have formed its first divisions during this period. The 1st and 3rd Armored Division, and 5th, 7th, and 9th Mechanized Infantry Divisions were all formed prior to 1973. Samuel M. Katz writes that after Hafez al-Assad gained power in November 1970, the Army expanded to the 5 divisions listed above, plus 10 independent brigades, an artillery rocket brigade, and a reinforced brigade variously termed the 70th Armored Brigade or the Assad Republican Guard. It is today known as the Armored Defense Force. As Assad's Praetorian Guard, it is stationed in and around Damascus and subordinate to the defense companies under the command of Assad's brother Rafat. 1970-2010 On September 18, 1970, the Syrian government became involved in Black September in Jordan when it sent a reinforced armored brigade to aid the Palestine Liberation Organization. Syrian armored units crossed the border and overran Erbil with the help of local Palestinian forces. They encountered several Jordanian army detachments, but rebuffed them without major difficulty. 2 days later, the 5th Infantry Division, heavily reinforced, was also sent into Jordan. 2 armored brigades were attached to the division, bringing its tank strength up to over 300 T-55s and its manpower to over 16,000. The division entered Jordan at Aramthor, destroyed a company of Jordanian Centurion tanks there, and continued directly towards Amman. Pollack says it is likely that they intended to overthrow the Jordanian monarchy itself. Despite defeating the Jordanian army at El Ramthor on September 21, after fierce air attacks on September 22, the Syrians stopped the attack and began to retreat. After 1970, further Syrian engagements included Yom Kippur War against Israel, Lebanese Civil War. The Syrian Armed Forces have also been involved in suppressing dissident movements within Syria, for example the Islamist uprising in Syria in 1979 to 1982. In March 1980, the 3rd Armored Division and detachments from the defense companies arrived in Aleppo. The division was under the command of General Shafik Fayyad, Hafiz Assad's first cousin. The troops sealed off whole quarters and carried out house-to-house searches, often preceded by tank fire. Hundreds of suspects were rounded up. Only 2 conventional army brigades deployed to Hama in 1982, the 3rd Armored Division unregistered trademark S-47th Armored and 21st Mechanized Brigades. 3/4 of the officers and 1/3 of the soldiers in the 2 brigades were Alawites. Most of the repression was carried out by the defense companies and the special forces. Meanwhile, the special forces were isolating and combing through Hama, killing and capturing suspected government opponents. Syrian forces fought Israel during the 1982 Lebanon War. In 1984, Major General Ali Haidar's special forces were instrumental in blocking an abortive attempt by Rifat Assad and his defense companies to seize the capital. Fayyad's 3rd Armored Division moved into the capital to join Haidar's forces in the confrontation with the defense companies. The 3rd Armored Division, it seems, had historically been based at El-Qutayfa, near Damascus. The 9th Armored Division served in the 1991 Persian Gulf War as the Arab Joint Forces Command North Reserve and saw little action. In 1994, Haidar expressed objections to the Syrian president's decision to bring Bashar home from his studies in Britain and groom him for the succession after the death of Basil, the eldest Assad son. Soon afterwards, on September 3, 1994, Jane's Defense Weekly reported that then-President Hafez Assad had dismissed at least 16 senior military commanders. Among them was Haidar, then commander of the Special Forces, and General Shafik Fayyad, a cousin of the president who had commanded the crack 3rd Armored Division for nearly 2 decades. The 3rd Armored Division was deployed around Damascus. JDW commented that the Special Forces and the 3rd Armored Division, along with the 1st Armored Division, are key elements in the security structure that protects Assad's government. any command changes involving those formations have considerable political significance. Post-uprising reporting indicated the 1st Armored Division had historically been at El-Qissa. On September 29, 2004, Jane's Defense Weekly reported that Syria had begun to redeploy elements of one or more Syrian Army Special Forces regiments based in the coastal hills a few miles south of Beirut in Lebanon. A senior Lebanese army officer told JDW that the 3,000 troops involved would return to Syria. In 2009 and 2010, according to the International Institute for Strategic Studies in London, the Syrian Army comprised 220,000 regular personnel, and the entire armed forces had 325,000 regular troops. Additionally, it had about 290,000 reservists. In 2013, Agence France Presse wrote on Syria's diminished security forces. Syrian Civil War equals defections. At October 1, 2011, according to high-ranking defected Syrian Colonel Riyad Assad, 10,000 soldiers, including high-ranking officers, had deserted the Syrian army. Some of these defectors had formed the Free Syrian Army, engaging in combat with security forces and soldiers in what would turn into the Syrian Civil War. At November 16, 2011, Rami Abdelrahman, the head of the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, however, estimated that less than 1,000 soldiers had deserted the Syrian army. At the same moment, an FSA battalion commander claimed that the FSA embraced 25,000 army deserters. Also in November 2011, the Free Syrian Army or the website of France 24 estimated the Syrian army at 200,000 troops. According to General Mustafa al-Sheikh, one of the most senior defectors, however, in January 2012 the Syrian forces were estimated at 280,000 including conscripts. By March 15, 2012, many more soldiers, unhappy with crackdowns on pro-democracy protesters, switched sides and a Turkish official said that 60,000 soldiers had deserted the Syrian army, including 20,000 since February 20. It was added that most of the deserters were junior officers and soldiers. By July 5, 2012, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights estimated tens of thousands of soldiers to have defected. By August 2012, 40 brigadier generals from the army had defected to the opposition army, out of a total of 1,200 generals. On June 14, 2013, 73 Syrian army officers and their families, some 202 people in total, sought refuge in Turkey. Amongst their number were 7 generals and 20 colonels. By August 2013, the strength of the Syrian army had, compared with 2010, roughly been cut in half, due to defections, desertions and casualties. According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies in London, it now counted 110,000 troops. Strength impaired. Up until July 2012, the scale of defections from the Syrian army, though hard to quantify, was too small to make an impact on the strength of that army, according to Aram Nergizian from the Washington-based Center for Strategic and International Studies. Strategically important units of the Syrian Armed Forces are always controlled by Alawite officers. Defecting soldiers by July 2012 tens of thousands according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights are mainly Sunni without access to vital command and control, Nergizian said. Analyst Joseph Holliday wrote in 2013 that the Assad government has from the beginning of the conflict been unable to mobilize all of its forces without risking larger-scale defections. The single greatest liability that the Assad regime has faced in employing its forces has been the challenge of relying on units to carry out orders to brutalize the opposition. This has resulted in Bashar's following his father's precedent by attaching regular army units to more reliable forces. When Hafez al-Assad directed the suppression of revolts in Hama in 1982, this technique was also used. The Syrian Arab Army suffers from serious recruitment issues as the Syrian Civil War drags on, with military-age men across sectarian lines no longer willing to join or serve their conscription terms. These issues are especially notable among the Druze population, who have clashed with regime security forces and broken Druze youths out of regime imprisonment to avoid them serving in the army. Increasingly, Assad's Alawite sectarian base of support refused to send their sons to the military due to massive casualty rates among military-age men in their community. A third of 250,000 Alawite men of fighting age have been killed in the Syrian Civil War, leading to major tensions between the sect and the Assad regime. Roles of 3rd, 11th, 17th and 18th Divisions. The 3rd Armored Division has deployed elements of 3 brigades from its bases around Qutayf-Tadariya, Zabadani, and Hama, while the 11th Armored Division has stayed close to its bases in Homs and Hama. The European Council named Major General Ajim Ahmad as commander of the 18th Armored Division in the Official Journal of the European Union on November 15, 2011, sanctioning him for violence committed in Homs. Henry Boyd of the IISS noted that in Homs, the 18th Armored Division was reinforced by Special Forces units and by elements of the 4th Division under Euro unregistered trademark S de facto command. Information from Holiday 2013 suggests that the Reserve Armored Division is the 17th, which was responsible for eastern Syria. The division's 93rd Brigade left Idlib to secure al-Araqq governorate in early 2012. Following the reported capture of Araqq on 3 March 6, 2013, elements of the 17th Division remained under siege to the north of the city in October 2013. Relationship with National Defense Force. The National Defense Force is under control and supervision of the Syrian Army and acts in an infantry role, directly fighting against rebels on the ground and running counter-insurgency operations in coordination with the army, which provides them logistical and artillery support. Struggling with reliability and issues with defections, officers of the SAA increasingly prefer the part-time volunteer reserves of the NDF, who they regard as more motivated and loyal, over regular army conscripts to conduct infantry operations and act as support infantry for advancing tanks. An officer in Homs, who asked not to be identified, said the army was increasingly playing a logistical and directive role, while NDF fighters act as combatants on the ground. Structure in 2001. Richard Bennett wrote in 2001 that 3 corps were formed in 1985 to give the army more flexibility and to improve combat efficiency by decentralizing the command structure, absorbing at least some of the lessons learned during the Israeli invasion of the Lebanon in 1982. The organization and military doctrine of the army followed the Soviet model. Richard Bennett's estimate of the 2001 order of battle was: 1st Corps Headquarters Damascus, which covered from Golan Heights, the fortified zone and south to Deraa near the Jordanian border. 5th Armored Division, which included the 17th and 96th Armored Brigades and the 112th Mechanized Brigade, 6th Armored Division, with the 12th and 98th Armored Brigades and the 11th Mechanized Brigades, 7th Mechanized Division, with the 58th and 68th Armored Brigades and the 78th Mechanized Brigade, 8th Armored Division, which included the 62nd and 65th Armored Brigades and the 32nd Mechanized Brigade, 9th Armored Division, with the 43rd and 91st Armored Brigades and the 52nd Mechanized Brigade. The 52nd Armored Brigade was reported in Deraa in southern Syria in May 2013. Bennett said the 1st Corps also had 4 independent Special Forces regiments, including 2 trained for heliborne commando operations against the Israeli signals intelligence and observation posts on Mount Hermon and elsewhere in the Golan Heights. 2nd Corps Headquarters Zabadani covers north of Damascus, to Homs and includes Lebanon. Bennett said in 2001 that the Corps principal units were believed to include 1st Armored Division, with the 44th and 46th Armored Brigades and the 42nd Mechanized Brigade, 3rd Armored Division, with the 47th and 82nd Armored Brigades and the 132nd Mechanized Brigade, 11th Armored Division, with the 60th and 67th Armored Brigades and the 87th Mechanized Brigade, 4th Mechanized Division with the 1st Armored Brigade and the 61st and 89th Mechanized Brigades, 10th Mechanized Division, headquartered in Shtra, Lebanon. Its main units were in 2001, deployed to control the strategic Beirut-Damascus highway with the 123rd Mechanized Brigade near Yanta, the 51st Armored Brigade near Zil in the Bekaa Valley and the 85th Armored Brigade, deployed around the complex of positions at Dar al-Baidar. 3 other heavy brigades from the 3rd and 11th Armored Divisions, were known to be regularly deployed to eastern Lebanon. There were 5 Special Forces regiments in the Lebanon. 3rd Corps headquarters Aleppo, based in the north and covered Hama, the Turkish and Iraqi borders, the Mediterranean coastline, and was tasked with protecting the complex of chemical and biological warfare and missile production and launch facilities. The 2nd Reserve Armored Division, with the 14th and 15th Armored Brigades and the 19th Mechanized Brigade. The 2nd was also believed to operate as the main armored forces training formation. It seems likely that the 2nd designation, reported in 2001, was incorrect, as it has not been reported during the Syrian Civil War. Other units under the control of this corps included 4 independent infantry brigades, 1 border guard brigade, 1 independent armored regiment, effectively a brigade group, and 1 special forces regiment. The Coastal Defense Brigade, which operated largely as an independent unit within the 3rd Corps area, was headquartered in the naval base of Latakia with 4 coastal defense battalions in Latakia, Banias, Hamadai and Tarchus. Each battalion has 4 batteries of both the short-range SSC-3 Sticks and long-range SSC-1B Sepal missile systems. The IISS listed smaller formations in 2006 as 4 independent infantry brigades, 10 independent airborne special forces regiments, 2 independent artillery brigades, 2 independent anti-tank brigades, surface-to-surface missile command with 3 SSM brigades, 1 brigade with Frog 7, 1 brigade with Scud BD, 1 brigade with SS-21 Scarab, 3 coastal defense missile brigades, 1 brigade with 4 SSC-1B Sepal launchers, 1 brigade with 6 P-15 Termit launchers, alternative designation SSC-3 Sticks, 1 brigade with 6 plus P-800 Onyx launchers, 1 border guard brigade, protecting Damascus, 4th Armored Division, the Republican Guard Armored Division, with 3 armored brigades, 1 mechanized brigade, and 1 artillery regiment. Force structure 2011, Order of Battle, at full strength, Corps, Falak, 50,000 men in 3 to 4 divisions, Division, FICA, 5,000 to 15,000 men in 5 to 6 brigades regiments, Brigade, Liwa, 2,500 to 3,500 men in 5 to 6 battalions, mechanized, 105 IFVs in 3 mechanized battalions, 41 tanks in 1 armored battalion, 3,500 soldiers. Armored, 105 tanks in 3 armored battalions, 31 IFVs in 1 mechanized battalion, 2,500 soldiers. Regiment, FAWJ, 1,500 men, infantry, 1,500 soldiers in 3 infantry battalions, artillery, 45 howitzers and 1,500 soldiers in 3 artillery battalions. Battalion, Katiba, 300 to 500 men in 4 to 5 companies. Company, Syria, 60 to 80 men, units reporting to the Chief of Staff. Republican Guard, Lionesses of Defense Armored Battalion, 101st, 102nd Infantry Security Regiments, 105th and 106th Mechanized Brigades, 104th Airborne Regiment, 100th Artillery Regiment, 124th or 103rd Special Forces, 4th Armored Division, 40th, 41st and 42nd Armored Brigades, 138th Mechanized Brigade, 154th Artillery Regiment, 555th Special Forces Regiment. Special Forces Command. Special Forces units include the 41st, 45th, 46th, 47th, 53rd and 54th Independent Special Forces Regiments, 14th Special Forces Division, 36th, 554th and 556th Special Forces Regiments. 15th Special Forces Division, 35th and 127 Special Forces Regiments, 404th Armored Regiment. Note: Special Forces in the Syrian Arab Army denote specialized light infantry and are elite only in relation to the conventional mechanized, armored units of the SAA. 1st Corps, 5th Mechanized Division, 112th, 132nd and 15th Mechanized Brigades, 12th Armored Brigade, 175th Artillery Regiment. 7th Mechanized Division, 68th, 121st and 88th Mechanized Brigades, 78th Armored Brigade, an unspecified, artillery regiment. 9th Armored Division, 33rd, 34th and 43rd Armored Brigades, 52nd Mechanized Brigade, an unspecified, artillery regiment. In addition, 1st Corps force structure includes two, the 61st and 90th, Independent Infantry Brigades, 2nd Corps, 1st Armored Division, 76th, 91st and 153rd Armored Brigades, 58th Mechanized Brigade, an unspecified, artillery regiment. 10th Mechanized Division, 85th, 62nd and 18th Mechanized Brigades, 56th Armored Brigade, an unspecified, artillery regiment. 3rd Corps, 3rd Armored Division, 47th, 65th and 81st Armored Brigade, 21st Mechanized Brigade, an unspecified, artillery regiment. 11th Armored Division, involved in Abu al-Duwa and Second Siege of Wadi Diyaf, 60th, 67th and an unspecified Armored Brigade, 87th Mechanized Brigade, an unspecified, artillery regiment. In addition, there are two independent divisions, 18th Armored Division, 131st, 134th and 167th Armored Brigade, 120th Mechanized Brigade, 64th Artillery Regiment. 17th Mechanized Division, 93rd Armored Brigade, 137th Mechanized Brigade, 121st Artillery Regiment, 154th Special Forces Regiment. Other, Aleppo was home to the Al-Assad Military Academy, which provided basic training for infantry and armored corps conscripts and advanced training for army engineers. It was overrun and captured by Free Syrian Army rebel forces in December 2012, but by June 2013 appeared to be back under central government control. 80th Brigade, Aleppo Area, 111th Regiment, Aleppo Area. Equipment at April 2011 including storage. The vast majority of Syrian military equipment was Soviet-manufactured. 9,300 armored fighting vehicles, 4,800 main battle tanks, 4,500 infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers. 3,400 towed artillery pieces, 1,900 plus gun howitzers, 1,500 anti-aircraft guns. 850 self-propelled artillery pieces, 450 self-propelled howitzers, 400 self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. 2,190 plus anti-tank guided weapon launchers, 500 multiple launch rocket systems, 84 tactical ballistic missile launchers. 4,235 plus surface-to-air missile launchers, 4,000 plus manpads, 235 self-propelled air defense systems. Uniforms and rank insignia. Uniforms Service uniforms for Syrian officers generally follow the British Army style, although Army combat clothing follows the Soviet model. Each uniform has two coats, a long one for dress and a short jacket for informal wear. Army officer uniforms are khaki in summer, olive in winter. Certain Army and Air Defense Force personnel may wear camouflage uniforms. Among the camouflage are red lizard, and Syrian leaf pattern. A locally made copy of the ERDL. Air Force officers have two uniforms for each season, a khaki and a light gray for summer and a dark blue and a light gray in winter. Naval officers wear white in summer and navy blue in winter, while lower ranks wear the traditional bell-bottoms and white blouse. The uniform for Naval Chief Petty Officers is a buttoned jacket, similar to that worn by United States Chief Petty Officers. Officers have a variety of headgear, including a service cap, garrison cap, and beret. The color of the beret varies according to the officer's unit. The most common beret color is black, for infantry, engineering, signals and supporting arms personnel, followed by green, for armored, mechanized and artillery personnel, red for the Republican Guard and military police, and maroon for the special forces. Current combat helmets include the SSH-68 and green PASGT, both of which can be equipped with Syrian leaf helmet covers. Ranks. Commissioned officers' rank insignia are identical for the Army and Air Force. These are gold on a bright green or black shoulder board for the Army and gold on a bright blue board for the Air Force. Officer ranks are standard, although the highest is the equivalent of Colonel General, a rank held in 1986 only by the Commander-in-Chief and the Minister of Defense. Navy officer rank insignia are gold stripes worn on the lower sleeve. The highest-ranking officer in Syria's Navy is the equivalent of Lieutenant General. Army and Air Force rank for warrant officers is indicated by gold stars on an olive-green shield worn on the upper left arm. Lower non-commissioned ranks are indicated by upright and inverted chevrons worn on the upper left arm. Awards equals, although some 25 orders and medals are authorized, generally only senior officers and warrant officers wear medal ribbons. The following are some important Syrian awards: Order of Umayyads, Medal of Military Honor, the War Medal, Medal for Courage, Yarmouk Medal, Wounded in Action Medal, and Medal of March 8, 1963. Anniversary: August 1 is nationally considered Army Day. In 2013, President Assad visited soldiers in Daraya. He gave the army a message saying he was sure of victory over the rebels. Notes: this article incorporates public domain material from websites or documents of the Library of Congress Country Studies. References: Richard M. Bennett, The Syrian Military, a Primer, Middle East Intelligence Bulletin, August-September 2001. Joseph Holliday, The Assad Regime, From Counterinsurgency to Civil War, Institute for the Study of War, March 2013. Seemingly the best concise description and analysis of the Syrian Army and its involvement in the current Syrian Civil War. Kenneth M. Polak, Arabs at War, Military Effectiveness 1948-91, University of Nebraska Press, Lincoln and London, 2002. Further reading, Department of the Army, Area Handbook for Syria, Washington, for sale by the Superintendent of Documents, USGOVT. Print. Off, 1965, Department of the Army Pamphlet No. 550-47. Revision of the 1958 edition. Kenneth M. Polak, Arabs at War, Military Effectiveness 1948-91, University of Nebraska Press, Lincoln and London, 2002. Reviewed in Brooks, Rise A. Making Military Might, Why Do States Fail and Succeed? A review essay. International Security 28, No. 2, 149-191. History of the Syrian Arab Army, Prussianization of the Arab Army, the Arab Revolt of 1916-1918, and the cult of nationalization of Arabs in the Levant after World War I, Infantry Magazine, NOV Dec 2005. General Mustafa Dlas, History of the Syrian Arab Army Al-Tariq al-Jesh al-Arabi al-Suri, Volume 1, 1901-1948, Center for Military Studies. Damascus, 2000. Volume 1 is 568 pages long and covers the Arab Revolt, the short-lived monarchy under King Faisal bin Hussein, the French Mandate, the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and finally Syrian independence in 1949. Pesach Melavani, Out of the North an Evil Shall Break Forth, Tel Aviv, Contento de Semric, 2014. External links: Army Equipment, Tom Cooper, Syrian Tank Hunters in Lebanon, 1982, Air Combat Information Group.